The yellow school bus lurched forward, its engine growling as it picked up speed down Maple Street. Sierra Mitchell's knuckles turned white as she gripped the emergency window frame, her body hanging outside the moving vehicle. Wind whipped her dark hair across her face, and the asphalt blurred beneath her dangling feet. Inside the bus, 3 boys pressed against the window, trying to pry her fingers loose. "Let go! Freak!" Mason Crawford laughed, his football championship ring glinting as he dug it into her knuckles. "Just drop already." But Sierra didn't let go. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Instead, she turned her head slowly, meeting Mason's eyes through the glass. The smile that spread across her face made him pause. Something in that smile promised that everything was about to change. If you've ever been bullied or seen someone stand up to a bully, hit that like button real quick. Drop a comment with your story too. This community's got your back. And hey, if these stories help you or someone you know, that thanks button below helps me keep sharing them. Every little bit helps me reach more people who need to hear they're not alone. Appreciate you all. Now, let me tell you exactly how Sierra, the quiet new girl, turned the tables on 3 bullies who thought they owned that bus. Tyler Brooks held up his phone, recording everything. "This is sick. Bro, she's actually doing it." His designer sneakers squeaked against the green vinyl seat as he leaned in for a better angle. Connor Davis, smaller than the other 2 but twice as vicious, grabbed Sierra's wrist. "Maybe we should help her decide." He started bending her fingers backward. The other students on the bus watched in horror. Some pulled out their phones. Others looked away. But nobody moved to help. Nobody ever did when Mason Crawford was involved. Sierra had been the new girl for exactly 3 weeks. 3 weeks of keeping her head down, sitting in the middle rows of bus number 47, trying to blend into the torn green seats and scratched windows. 3 weeks of pretending not to notice when Mason and his crew ruled the back of the bus like their personal kingdom. She'd moved to Riverside with her father after her mother's death. A fresh start, he'd said, a quiet town where they could heal. Colonel Mitchell had chosen this place specifically because it was supposed to be safe, peaceful, the kind of place where nothing ever happened. The first day had been deceptively quiet. Sierra found an empty seat halfway back, opened her book, and minded her own business. She noticed Mason immediately. He was hard to miss. 6'2", quarterback build, with that particular swagger that came from being the sheriff's son in a small town. Tyler Brooks sat beside him, scrolling through his phone and occasionally showing Mason something that made them both laugh. Connor Davis sprawled across the seat behind them, feet up, taking up space he hadn't earned. "Fresh meat," Connor had whispered, loud enough for her to hear, but Sierra kept reading, fingers steady on the pages of her worn paperback. Day 2 brought the first test. A spitball hit the back of her neck during the ride home. She brushed it away without turning around. Another hit her book. Then another. The boys' laughter echoed through the bus, but Sierra just turned the page. "Hey, new girl," Mason called out. "You deaf or just stupid?" Sierra closed her book slowly, marking her place with a finger. She turned in her seat, meeting his gaze with steady brown eyes. Neither, just not interested. The bus went quiet. Nobody talked to Mason Crawford like that. Nobody. Tyler lowered his phone, actually paying attention for once. Connor sat up straighter. Mason's jaw tightened, but then he smiled. The kind of smile that meant trouble was coming. "Not interested," he repeated, drawing out each word. "Hear that? Boy's princess here isn't interested in making friends." Maybe she thinks she's too good for us, Tyler suggested, already seeing content potential. Must be it, Mason agreed. He stood up, having to duck slightly to avoid hitting his head on the bus ceiling. Carl, the driver, was focused on the road, squinting through thick glasses that should have been replaced years ago. The rear-view mirror might as well have been decorative for all the attention he paid to it. Mason made his way down the aisle, his friends following. He stopped at Sierra's seat, looming over her. Up close, she could smell his cologne, something expensive and overwhelming. His leather jacket bore patches for football, wrestling, and track. A golden boy with a mean streak a mile wide. "Here's how this works," he said, voice low enough that Carl wouldn't hear over the engine noise. "This bus has a hierarchy. I'm at the top. My boys here are with me. Everyone else falls in line. You're at the bottom. Fresh meat always is." Sierra looked up at him, then deliberately opened her book again. "Fascinating. Does this speech usually work?" Connor snorted with laughter before catching himself. Mason's face darkened. "You've got balls. New girl, I'll give you that." He reached down and plucked the book from her hands, examining the cover. "What's this trash? Some romance novel? It's Hemingway," Sierra said evenly. "The sun also rises, though I doubt you'd appreciate the symbolism." Tyler whistled low. "Damn, she just called you stupid, Mace." Mason's grip tightened on the book for a moment. Sierra thought he might tear it in half instead. He smiled again and tossed it out the open window. The paperback fluttered in the wind before disappearing into the roadside ditch. "Oops," he said. "Butterfingers." Sierra's jaw clenched, the first sign of emotion she'd shown. That book had been her mother's, one of the few things she'd kept. But she forced herself to remain calm, turning back to face forward. "That all you got?" she asked quietly. Mason leaned in close, his breath hot on her ear. "Not even close, princess. We're just getting started." The rest of that week established the pattern. Every morning and afternoon, the harassment escalated. Gum in her hair, soda accidentally spilled on her backpack, her lunch money snatched from her hand and tossed around the bus like a game of keep-away. Sierra endured it all without breaking. She'd learned patience from her father, discipline from years of training. What these boys didn't know was that Colonel Mitchell hadn't raised a victim. He'd raised a survivor. "Why don't you fight back?" a girl named Jenny had whispered to her one afternoon, after Mason had dumped the contents of Sierra's backpack across the aisle. "Tell someone." "Tell who?" Sierra asked, collecting her scattered notebooks.
"His daddy, the sheriff, Carl up there, who conveniently goes deaf whenever they start up the principal who wears Mason's jersey number on game days."
Jenny bit her lip. "It's not right." "No," Sierra agreed. "It's not. But sometimes you have to pick your battles. Wait for the right moment." "When's that?" Sierra smiled, and it was the same smile she would wear 3 weeks later, hanging outside the bus. "You'll know it when you see it." The second week brought physical escalation. Mason discovered that Sierra always sat in the same seat, 4th row back, left side, by the window. So he claimed it for himself, sprawling across it every morning before she got on. "Oh, sorry," he'd say with mock politeness. "This seat's taken. Guess you'll have to stand." Sierra would wordlessly move to another seat. But the next day, that seat would be taken too. Soon. She was relegated to the floor by the wheel well, backpack clutched in her lap while the bus bounced over potholes. "Where's your smart mouth now?" Connor taunted, filming her with his phone. Not so tough down there. Are you? Sierra said nothing. She counted the stops, memorized the route, noted which turns were sharpest. Information was power. Her father always said, "Know your terrain." Tyler posted the videos to his social media, carefully edited to show only Sierra on the floor. Never the reason why. The captions were cruel bus trash where she belongs, and even the seats reject her. They got hundreds of likes from classmates too afraid to do anything else. The third week started with the bathroom incident. The bus had a tiny emergency restroom in the back, basically a closet with a chemical toilet, meant for long field trips. Mason and his crew cornered Sierra during the morning ride, shoving her inside and jamming the door with a hockey stick. "Hope you're comfortable in there," Mason called through the door. "It's where you belong anyway, with the rest of the crap." And the smell was overwhelming. The chemicals, the confined space, the motion of the bus making her stomach churn. But Sierra controlled her breathing, found her center. She'd been in worse places, cramped cars during long moves, hospital rooms that smelled of disinfectant and death. This was nothing. When Carl finally stopped for a railroad crossing 20 minutes later, she used the emergency release to open the door, sliding out past the shocked boys. She returned to her seat without a word, though her eyes promised retribution. "Tough little thing, isn't she?" Tyler muttered. "She's asking for it," Mason replied, but something in his voice suggested uncertainty. He was used to breaking people quickly. Sierra's resistance was becoming a challenge to his authority. Thursday night, Sierra sat at the kitchen table, doing homework while her father cooked dinner. Colonel Mitchell moved around the kitchen with military precision, each movement economical and purposeful. "How's school?" he asked, not turning from the stove. "Fine," Sierra replied automatically. "And the bus?" Her pencil paused over her calculus problem. Her father noticed everything, even when he seemed focused elsewhere. "Also fine." He turned then, studying her with sharp gray eyes that had seen combat in 3 different countries. "Sierra, you know you can talk to me about anything." "I know. Dad?" She met his gaze steadily. "But I've got this." He nodded slowly. They were alike in that way, preferring to handle their own problems. "Just remember what I taught you. Sometimes the best defense is letting them think they're winning." Sierra finished. "I remember. And if things escalate beyond what you can handle," she smiled, and it was his smile reflected back at him, "then I'll handle it differently." Friday morning dawned gray and drizzling. The kind of rain that wasn't quite enough to cancel school, but made everything damp and miserable. Sierra boarded the bus with her hood up, water droplets clinging to the fabric. Mason was waiting in her usual seat, feet up on the back of the seat in front of him. "Morning, Princess. Lovely weather for a swim, don't you think?" Tyler and Connor flanked him, their grins sharp as broken glass. Something was different today. There was an energy in the air, electric and dangerous. "Big game tonight," Connor said, conversationally. "Maze here needs to blow off some steam before he crushes Lincoln High." "That's right," Mason agreed, cracking his knuckles. "And I've been thinking, we've been too easy on you. New girl, time to step up our game." Sierra chose a seat 3 rows back, by another window. She always chose window seats now. Old habit from traveling. Always know your exits. The bus rumbled to life, Carl grinding through the gears as they pulled away from the curb. The rain intensified, drumming against the roof and streaming down the windows. Other students hunched in their seats, earbuds in, eyes down. They'd learned not to watch when Mason was hunting. "You know what your problem is," Mason continued, standing despite the moving bus. He swayed with the motion like a sailor on deck. You don't know your place, but don't worry. We're going to teach you. They waited until the bus was on the main road, picking up speed. The residential streets gave way to the commercial district, storefronts blurring past in the gray morning light. That's when Mason made his move. Connor, get the window! The emergency exit window had a red handle, meant for evacuation. Connor yanked it, and the window swung open on its hinges. Cold rain immediately sprayed inside, making nearby students yelp and scramble away. Oops, Tyler laughed, still filming. Looks like we've got a malfunction. Someone should really stick their head out and check if it's broken. Mason grabbed Sierra's shoulder before she could react. His grip was iron strong from years of wrestling practice. Volunteer right here. She twisted, using a move her father had taught her, but Tyler grabbed her other arm. Together, they hauled her toward the open window. Other students gasped, some calling out protests, but nobody physically intervened. Stop! A freshman girl cried out. You'll kill her! Relax, Mason said casually. Just teaching her to fly. Every bird's got to leave the nest sometime. Sierra fought them, but 3 against 1 in a confined space wasn't a fair fight. They pushed her upper body through the window, rain immediately soaking her hair and clothes. The road rushed by below, puddles exploding under the bus tires. The speedometer over Carl's shoulder read 35 miles per hour. How's the weather out there? Connor called, holding her legs so she couldn't kick back. Refreshing. That's when Sierra stopped fighting against them and started using their force. She grabbed the emergency window frame with both hands, using their push to swing her legs up and out. For a moment, she was completely outside the bus, feet finding purchase on the narrow ledge below the windows. What the hell? Tyler stepped back, surprised. Sierra adjusted her grip, muscle memory from hundreds of hours on the climbing wall kicking in. The rain made everything slick, but she'd climbed in worse conditions. She turned to face them through the window, and that's when she smiled. My turn, she said quietly, but they heard her clearly over the rain. Mason lunged forward, trying to push her off completely, but Sierra had been expecting it. She caught his wrist as his arm came through the window, her grip like a vice. He tried to pull back, but she held firm. Let go, he demanded, but for the first time, there was fear in his voice. That's what you wanted, right? Sierra's voice was calm, almost conversational. For me to let go. She shifted her weight, pulling Mason further out the window. His shoulders scraped against the frame as his upper body emerged into the rain. Tyler and Connor grabbed him from behind, trying to anchor him. You're crazy, Mason screamed, rain running into his eyes. The ground blurred past beneath them. Pull me in, but I thought you wanted me to learn my place, Sierra said. Well, this is it, right here, right now. We're equals out here. Mason, just you, me, and gravity. The bus hit a pothole, jostling everyone. Mason yelped as he slipped further out, only Sierra's grip and his friend's desperate pulling keeping him from falling completely. His legs kicked frantically inside the bus. Please. The word tore from his throat. Pride forgotten in the face of real danger. Sierra studied him for a moment, rain running down her face. Then she looked past him to Tyler and Connor. 3 of you wanted me out here. Seems only fair you all join me. She pulled harder, using Mason's weight as leverage. Tyler and Connor, trying to save their friend, were dragged forward. The window frame was only so big, but physics was on Sierra's side now. Connor's hip hit the frame hard as he was pulled partially through. "Stop!" Tyler screamed, his phone clattering to the floor. "We'll all fall, then you better hold on tight," Sierra advised. Students were screaming now, some running to the front of the bus, begging Carl to stop. The old driver glanced in the mirror, saw the commotion, and his eyes went wide behind his thick glasses. The bus began to slow, but they were approaching the intersection of Main and 3rd, the busiest crossing in town. Carl couldn't just slam on the brakes without causing an accident. Sierra maintained her grip on Mason, who was now crying openly, rain and tears mixing on his face. Tyler had both arms around Mason's waist, and Connor was wedged in the window frame, half in and half out. "When we get through this," Sierra said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "things are going to change. No more harassment, no more bullying, no more acting like you own this bus and everyone on it. Agreed?" "Yes," Mason sobbed. "Whatever you want, just pull me in." "I don't think you mean it," Sierra said thoughtfully. "Maybe we should stay out here a little longer. Really let the lesson sink in." The bus was slowing more now, Carl frantically looking for a safe place to stop. But traffic was heavy, and the rain made visibility poor. They were still going 20 miles per hour at least. "Please," Connor gasped, his ribs compressed against the window frame. "We're sorry. Sorry." Sierra tilted her head. "For which part?" "The spitballs, the stolen lunch money, locking me in the bathroom, destroying my mother's book." Each word hit like a physical blow. The other students watched in stunned silence as the truth of weeks of torment was laid bare. "All of it," Tyler cried out. "We're sorry for all of it." Sierra nodded slowly. "Better. But sorry isn't enough. You three have terrorized this bus for years. How many kids have you hurt? How many have transferred schools or found other ways to get to class? Just to avoid you." Nobody answered, but the silence spoke volumes. "Here's what's going to happen," Sierra continued, adjusting her grip as Mason whimpered. "When this bus stops, you're going to apologize to everyone. Then you're going to find different transportation to school. This bus is off limits to you three from now on." "You can't," Tyler started. Sierra pulled Mason another inch outward. "I can't what you put me out here. You started this. I'm just better at finishing it than you expected." The bus finally found a place to pull over. A strip mall parking lot just past the intersection. But Sierra didn't let go. Not yet. "One more thing," she said. "I know you've been recording all of this." "Tyler, your phone might be on the floor, but I bet others are filming." "Good. Let them see what happens when you push someone too far." As the bus rolled to a stop, Sierra maintained her grip on Mason and her position outside the window. Students pressed against the opposite windows, phones out, capturing every second. The rain had lightened to a drizzle, but the three boys were soaked through, shivering with cold and fear. "Now," Sierra said quietly, "we wait for the authorities. And won't that be interesting? Considering whose son is hanging out a bus window." Mason's eyes widened further as the implications hit him. His father, the sheriff, would hear about this. The whole town would hear about this. There was no spinning this story. No way to make himself the victim, with dozens of witnesses and video evidence. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer. Sierra smiled again, that same cold smile that had started this all. "Welcome to consequences," she said. "Population U3. The sirens grew louder. The phone cameras kept recording. And Sierra Mitchell, the quiet new girl who just wanted to read her book in peace. held 3 bullies suspended between safety and disaster, waiting patiently for justice to arrive. But she wasn't done yet. Not even close. The first police car screeched into the parking lot, lights flashing red and blue through the morning drizzle. Sierra maintained her grip on Mason, who had gone from sobbing to hyperventilating. Tyler and Connor remained tangled in their human chain, afraid to move, afraid to let go. Nobody move. Deputy Martinez stepped out of the patrol car, hand on his radio. He was young, maybe late 20s, and his eyes widened as he took in the scene. 3 teenage boys hanging partially out of a school bus window, held in place by a girl who looked perfectly calm despite being completely outside the vehicle. "Deputy," Sierra said conversationally, as if they were meeting at a coffee shop. "These 3 were trying to push me out of a moving bus. I decided to show them what that felt like." More sirens approached. Carl, the bus driver, stood beside his vehicle, wringing his hands and muttering about retirement. Students pressed against every window. Phones still recording. "Miss, I need you to carefully move back inside," Martinez said, approaching slowly. "Happy to," Sierra replied, "as soon as they apologize to everyone they've terrorized on this bus. We had a deal." Mason tried to speak, but only managed a wheezing gasp. The reality of hanging 35 feet above asphalt had stripped away years of arrogance. "Now!" Tyler screamed from inside. We're sorry to everyone. Names," Sierra said calmly. "Be specific." "Jenny Patterson," Connor gasped out, ribs still pressed against the window frame. "Sorry for putting gum in your hair." "Marcus Webb," Tyler added desperately. "Sorry for stealing your inhaler that time." "Amit Patel," Mason whispered, "for the curry jokes. Every day. I'm sorry." The confessions poured out like water from a broken dam. 3 years of cruelty laid bare in the parking lot of a strip mall, witnessed by dozens and recorded for posterity. 2 more police cars arrived, followed by an ambulance. The EMTs looked confused, but ready. One of them, a woman with graying hair, called up to Sierra. "Honey, are you hurt?" "No, ma'am," Sierra replied. "Just teaching a lesson in physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction." Deputy Martinez was on his radio, calling for additional units and trying to explain the situation to dispatch. "No, they're not falling. She's holding them. Yes, holding. No, I don't know how." That's when a black Chevy Suburban pulled up. No lights, but moving fast. Sheriff Crawford stepped out, his face a mask of fury and fear. He looked up at his son dangling from the bus and then at Sierra. "Let him go," he commanded. "Sure thing," Sierra said, and loosened her grip slightly. Mason screamed, "No, I mean, pull him in." "Oh, you should be more specific. Sheriff, words matter." Sierra adjusted her hold again. "But I think Deputy Martinez has this under control. You seem too emotionally involved to handle this professionally." Crawford's face went purple, but Martinez stepped forward. "Sir, with all due respect, you should step back. This involves your son. That's my boy hanging out there. Which is why you can't be the one handling this," Martinez said firmly. Several other deputies had arrived, and they nodded in agreement. Crawford might be the sheriff, but protocol was protocol. A news van pulled up, the local Channel 7 team. The reporter jumped out, immediately directing her cameraman to start filming. Sierra noticed and smiled. "Hey, Tyler," she called. "Looks like you're not the only one filming anymore. Smile for the news." That's when Jenny Patterson, quiet Jenny who'd whispered to Sierra weeks ago, stood up inside the bus. "I've been recording since the beginning of the year," she announced, holding up her phone. "Every single thing they did. I have hours of footage. Me too, said Marcus Webb. And added Amit Patel. One by one, more students revealed they'd been documenting the bullying, not for social media likes, but as evidence, waiting for someone brave enough to make it matter. Holy hell, Martinez muttered. This is going to be a nightmare of paperwork. More emergency vehicles arrived. The fire department brought a ladder truck, positioning it near the bus. A firefighter climbed up, approaching Sierra carefully. Miss, I'm Captain Rodriguez. Can you hold on for another minute while we get safety equipment in place? I can hold on for hours, Sierra said simply. Rock climbing with my dad every weekend for 10 years. This is nothing. Mason whimpered at the word hours. They set up inflatable cushions beneath the bus, though Sierra noted they were probably unnecessary. She'd fallen from higher places during training, but protocol was protocol. All right, Captain Rodriguez said once everything was in place. Let's get everyone back inside safely. Sierra looked at the three boys one last time. Remember this feeling, the helplessness, the fear, the humiliation. That's what you put others through every single day, but here's the difference. I'm going to let you back in safely, because I'm better than you. Working with the firefighters, she carefully maneuvered Mason back through the window. He collapsed on the bus floor, shaking. Tyler and Connor followed, both pale and soaked. Only then did Sierra swing herself back inside with an easy grace that made several firefighters whistle appreciatively. $20 says she could pass our physical fitness test right now, one muttered. The moment her feet hit the bus floor, the other students erupted in applause. Not the cruel laughter that usually followed Mason's stunts, but genuine appreciation for someone who'd finally stood up to the tyranny. Martinez climbed aboard, notepad out. I'm going to need statements from everyone. This is going to be a long morning. Check social media, someone called out. The videos are already going viral. It was true. Multiple angles of the incident were spreading across platforms. Bus bully gets karma was trending within the hour. The footage was clear. 3 boys attacking a girl, pushing her out a window, and her turning the tables on them. Sheriff Crawford tried to board the bus, but Martinez and 2 other deputies blocked him. Sir, you need to let us handle this. She assaulted my son. Your son assaulted her first, Martinez said evenly. We have dozens of witnesses and video evidence. She defended herself. The next 2 hours were a blur of statements, evidence collection, and bureaucracy. Parents arrived, most shocked by what their children had endured in silence. Mason's mother showed up, took one look at the videos Jenny was showing the police, and slapped her son across the face. How dare you, she hissed. We raised you better than this. Tyler's parents, both lawyers, went pale as they reviewed the evidence. The live stream had captured everything, including their son's gleeful narration as he helped push a girl out a window. We'll be pursuing a restraining order, Tyler's mother said quietly, to keep him away from the victim. Victims, Sierra corrected. Plural. Check the videos. Connor's grandmother arrived, a tiny woman with steel in her spine. She watched 30 seconds of footage before grabbing her grandson's ear. Boy, you're going to volunteer at the animal shelter every day after school for the rest of the year. Maybe cleaning up after creatures who can't speak for themselves will teach you empathy. The school district superintendent arrived, along with the principal and several board members. They watched the compilation Jenny had put together, weeks of systematic bullying, all time-stamped and dated. How did we not know about this? The superintendent asked Carl. The old bus driver shrugged helplessly. They were always quiet up front. I can't see everything in the mirrors." "Maybe it's time for better mirrors," Sierra suggested, "or cameras, or drivers who actually pay attention." By noon, the story had gone national. #BusJustice was trending. Mason's football scholarship offers started getting withdrawn as colleges distanced themselves from the scandal. Tyler's carefully curated social media presence became a liability as people found his old posts mocking victims. Sierra sat in the principal's office, her father beside her in full uniform. Colonel Mitchell hadn't said much, but his presence spoke volumes. "Miss Mitchell," the principal began carefully, "while we understand you were defending yourself, the manner in which you did so was extremely dangerous." "More dangerous than being pushed out of a moving bus?" Colonel Mitchell asked quietly. "Well, no, but more dangerous than weeks of unchecked bullying that your staff ignored. We didn't know. Because you didn't look. My daughter handled this situation with remarkable restraint. She could have let those boys fall. She could have seriously hurt them. Instead, she held them safely until authorities arrived. She showed more control and judgment than anyone else involved, including the adults who should have prevented this situation entirely." The principal had no response to that. The aftermath moved quickly. Mason, Tyler, and Connor were expelled after a hasty school board meeting. Criminal charges were filed: assault, reckless endangerment, harassment. The district implemented new anti-bullying policies and installed cameras on all buses. Carl took early retirement. The new driver, a former military police officer, had a different approach to maintaining order. Sierra became something of a legend. Though she tried to avoid the attention, colleges reached out, impressed by her character and composure under pressure. The rock climbing community invited her to competitions. Anti-bullying organizations asked her to speak. She turned most of them down. "I just wanted to read my book in peace," she told one persistent reporter. 3 months later, Sierra was back in her usual seat, 4th row, left side, by the window. She had a new copy of The Sun Also Rises, a gift from the grateful parents of Mason's former victims. The bus was different now, quieter, but in a good way. Students talked and laughed without fear. Jenny sat beside her, finally brave enough to take a front-facing seat. "Did you really plan all that, knowing how they'd react?" Sierra marked her page and considered the question. "I knew they'd escalate eventually. Bullies always do when their authority is challenged. I just made sure I was ready when they did." The climbing stuff, that was true. Every word. Dad started teaching me when I was 6, after Mom got sick. It became our thing. Hours on the wall, learning to trust my grip, to read the rock, to stay calm when things got scary. She smiled sadly. I think he knew I'd need those skills for more than just climbing. The bus pulled up to a red light. Through the window, Sierra saw Mason walking along the sidewalk, head down, heading to his court-mandated community service. He looked up as the bus passed, making eye contact with her for just a moment. She saw fear there, but also something else. Maybe understanding, maybe regret. Tyler had transferred to a private school 2 towns over. His social media accounts were gone, deleted after the harassment from strangers became too much. Connor was still at Riverside, but quiet now, keeping to himself and actually doing his homework. "Do you ever feel bad for them?" Jenny asked. Sierra thought about it. "No, they made choices, every day. They chose cruelty. Finally, they faced consequences." She paused. "But I hope they learn from it. People can change, if they really want to." The bus rumbled on, carrying its load of students safely to school. No one cowered in the back anymore. No one claimed seats they hadn't earned. No one filmed others' humiliation for likes and laughs. And Sierra Mitchell, the quiet girl who just wanted to read in peace, finally could. She opened her book and lost herself in Hemingway's prose. The morning sun warming her face through the window, the same window she'd hung from, the window that had become a symbol of standing up to bullies everywhere. Sometimes the best lessons were taught outside the classroom. Sometimes they happened on an ordinary Friday morning, in the rain, on bus number 47. Sometimes all it took was one person willing to hold on tight and refuse to let go. 5 years later, Autumn Sinclair stood before Congress, testifying about the Ridgerest model that had transformed hundreds of schools nationwide. The former physics teacher had become an reluctant icon, her story studied in education programs and civil rights courses. "Senator," she addressed the committee chair, "systemic bullying thrives in darkness. When we shine light through accountability, transparency, and consequences, it withers. The Ridgerest model isn't revolutionary. It's simply what happens when we stop protecting perpetrators and start protecting students." In the gallery, familiar faces watched with pride. Phoenix Bradshaw, now a civil rights attorney. Savannah Wells, an investigative journalist whose exposés on academic corruption had won Pulitzer consideration. River Chen, who'd started a nonprofit providing legal support to harassed teachers. They'd all taken different paths, but each carried the lessons from that transformative year. After the hearing, Autumn met them for coffee at a small D.C. cafe. "Remember when you just wanted to teach physics?" Phoenix teased. "I still just want to teach physics." Autumn laughed. "But apparently physics includes teaching people about momentum, resistance, and critical mass for social change." Her phone buzzed another school requesting guidance. In the years since Ridgerest, she'd helped reform over 200 institutions. The Sinclair Protocol had become standard training at education conferences, but she always returned to the classroom. Teaching new students that knowledge was power and courage was contagious. "You know what the best part is?" Savannah mused. "Jackson Donovan writes me from prison sometimes. He's getting his teaching degree. Says he wants to coach kids the right way. Break the cycle he perpetuated." "People can change." Autumn nodded. "When systems change, people within them change too. That's the real physics of transformation, creating conditions where better choices become possible." As they parted ways, River handed Autumn an envelope. Inside was a photo from their graduation day, signed by hundreds of students whose lives had been changed by one teacher who refused to compromise. The inscription read, "Force x mass x acceleration. You taught us to be the force with love. The Ridgerest Revolution." Autumn smiled, tucking the photo into her briefcase next to her lesson plans. Tomorrow, she'd face a new classroom of students, and once again, she'd teach them physics, the physics of standing up, speaking out, and changing the world one equation at a time. The next morning, Autumn entered Harrison High School in inner-city Baltimore. Her newest assignment. The hallways reeked of neglect-peeling paint, flickering fluorescent lights, and the unmistakable tension of a school on the edge. She'd specifically requested this placement after reading about their 40% dropout rate and 3 teacher assaults in the past year. "You must be the miracle worker." Principal Rodriguez greeted her, exhaustion etched in every line of his face. "Fair warning, your second period AP Physics has the Northside crew. They've run off 4 teachers this semester alone." Autumn smiled. "Perfect. I work best with challenging particles." The warning bell rang, and she made her way to room 217. Through the door's narrow window, She spotted them immediately, 7 students wearing matching black hoodies, sprawled across desks like they owned the place. The leader, a muscular kid with neck tattoos, was carving something into a desk with a switchblade. She entered without hesitation. "Good morning, I'm Miss Sinclair, and before we start, I have one question." She set her briefcase down calmly. "Which one of you thinks you're the toughest?" The room went silent. The leader, his desk nameplate read, Deshaun Washington, slowly looked up. "You lost or something. This ain't suburban Kansas, lady." "You're right," Autumn agreed, pulling out her laptop. "This is Baltimore, home of Frederick Douglass, Thurgood Marshall, and, hopefully, future physicists who understand that real power isn't about intimidation, it's about understanding the forces that shape our world." Deshaun stood, his crew following suit. "See, that's where you're wrong. In here. We're the force." "Prove it," Autumn challenged, pulling out a baseball and tossing it to him. "Calculate the force of your throw. Mass times acceleration. Show me you understand power." Shatties, he caught the ball, confusion flickering across his face. "What kind of game?" "No game. You claim to understand force. I'm asking you to quantify it. Or is the North Side crew afraid of a little math?" The room crackled with tension. Another student, a girl with intricate braids, spoke up. "Why should we care about some equations?" Autumn pulled up a video on her laptop. "Because Jamal Rice graduated from this very school 15 years ago, used these same equations to design buildings that withstand hurricanes. Because Keisha Johnson, Northside born and raised, became a NASA engineer using physics principles. Because knowledge is the only power nobody can take from you." "Man, this some after-school special nonsense." Deshaun scoffed, but he hadn't put down the baseball. "Is it?" Autumn walked to the board, wrote an equation. "This formula calculates trajectory. It's how your beloved Ravens quarterback knows where to throw. It's how the police calculate bullet paths at crime scenes. It's how SpaceX lands rockets. Power isn't just physical, it's understanding how the world works." A thin boy in the back raised his hand tentatively. "My cousin said you're the teacher who took down that whole corrupt school board upstate." "I taught students to think critically and demand better," Autumn corrected. "They took down the corruption themselves, just like you could transform this school if you understood the physics of social momentum." Deshaun finally sat, still holding the baseball. "Aight, say we listen. What's in it for us?" "Everything," Autumn said simply. "The ability to build instead of destroy, to protect instead of threaten, to lead through knowledge instead of fear." But first, she pointed to the equation. "Who can tell me what happens when we increase the angle of release?" For the first time in months, hands slowly raised in room 2710. The transformation of Harrison High had begun, one equation at a time.